When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode.
And for the audience joining us, this is Mike Gips. He's with Kroll Enterprises, a consulting out of New York, and he's also he has his law degree. He does a lot of policy work, and we're talking about his first published book. It's not in the manual. Great book, and kudos to Mike for writing this and putting this together. And the Fearless Mindset Podcast was featured in one of the top right podcasts to listen to in the industry, and many of my colleagues are also represented here and their collaborations and offers that they offer in the industry of security. And if you're just tuning in, we've been talking about how the generation is being affected by AI, social media, and what it looks like for the next generation that'll be taking our place. We're the OGs, and in the security industry, we just are. That's just the reality of life. And we're talking about how we can coach and mentor the next generation. It's a busy
Cue the emergency vehicle. Yeah.
Yep, I'm on a busy city street here in Northern California. So I'm in a hotel doing a podcast with Mike, and in my environment, that's what we got. So, oh well, we just deal with it. But Mike and I we just did about a 30-minute conversation about the new generation, what they have to look forward to in the culture of coming out of COVID, the AI culture, AI of, social media, misinformation, and Mike just explained in the last episode, just advice on how to disengage from the matrix, so to speak, and how to develop your mind in proper managing the different stimulations you're getting from information, what is true, what is not, And so there's ways to do that. Mike explained that a little bit in the last episode we did. Now we're jumping into the next 30-minute episode part of solutions on how to navigate through those problems, being a younger generation. And so those leaders in the security industry, they're looking for solutions to their problems, how to mitigate risk and their valuation of their company, stock value, and how to keep their culture safe, as well as many other stuff that they have to look at too. Like, I remember having a meeting internally with our people. It was last year in DC, and one of the, I'm not going to say names, but one of the feedback I got from a couple of people in the younger generation is, hey, I just want to be happy. I don't care how much money I just want to be happy. And I'm like, whoa. And then my generation goes, we always teach us like, what is that? Be happy. You got to go strap on your boots and put your belt on and go to work. You got to make money and, go kill your animal or bring food to the table. That's kind of the way, that's an analogy, folks. Well, how are you going to bring food to the table? If you're an anti, hunting and all that, that's fine. Just an analogy OGs used to use. But how you put food on the table? How you pay your bills? I want to be happy. So I know there's that's a way of thinking of the new culture coming in. And so that's something we have to look at. So we have to get along. We have to, the next generation has needs, obviously, of how they have to work and function in the workplace. And I talked to several people and say, yeah, this one person started a job and they got frustrated and I don't put up with this, I quit. Okay, so how you put gas in the car? And I noticed their temperament is not as strong as most in our generation. I think we just put up with more. And so that's something we're going to have to navigate through. And of course, that's going to create different types of working environment. That's why Mike's doing what he does at Kroll. Workplace violence is going to be an issue as we come out of COVID. Now we're, going into a new economy, a new industry. We have AI and crypto coming on. And that's going to create its own problems. I was flying on a jet. I spent about a week at Washington, D.C. last year for the OSAC, Overseas Advisory Security Council. And we're members of that organization. And we went to the Security Foundation there. I met Mike at the Kroll table with shout out to his team at Kroll, Matt Dumpert and Steve Powers and Todd over there. And oh yeah, can't forget Tim Mosel. And so
he's a regular on the show. Yeah,
he's a regular. Yeah, I think he has he's the most podcast guest. He actually beat out Frank Mir, the 2-time world heavyweight UFC champion.
Wow.
But Frank had a lot of appearances on the show for a bit. And he just reached out recently. He had some health issues he had to deal with, and he just reached out, hey, let's get together and do something. I'm like, all right, Frank, that sounds good. So Frank Mir and I are talking about doing some stuff, and he's going to get back in the business world here shortly. But I got to meet with the Kroll team up at dinner and kind of hung out with them for a bit and doing some great things out there. But you guys, as Kroll, you guys see the evolving issues of enterprise threats, workplace violence becoming an issue with AI, with social media, and then you have crypto and you have AI. And you know what's funny? As I was flying back from DC back to the West Coast on the Delta flight, I was sitting with this guy. He looked like a banker. He just had that look. He's all in his laptop doing his business. He had spreadsheets going on. I was kind of peeking over there. I'm like, I looked at him like, you must be a banker or running a hedge fund. He goes, how did you know? I'm like, well, sir, I get paid to kind of profile people. I have a degree in criminology. He looked at me and goes, you've been profiling me the whole time. He kind of looked at me with like, oh, how did you know that? I'm like, I'm just trying to do that. And then I said, I'm just curious, sir, what is the biggest threat to banking as we speak right now? We got 3 hours, we're 40,000 feet cruising across the sky to the airways there. And he goes, well, to be honest with you, the biggest threat to banking right now is AI and crypto. Banking doesn't understand it. They don't get it. And it freaks out the leadership. But the administration right now is opening up the markets, and we don't know what the risks are involved. So is it kind of what you guys are hearing too, Mike, with Kroll from your clients?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a lot of our clients or an increasing number of our clients deal in crypto or in that sort of like emerging financial sector, and they don't have so they're coming to us for financial risk advisory, but also just physical and cyber risk advisory, because these places are just kind of built immediately, right? It's like everyone jumps into crypto, right? So they're like, oh, the money can be made. And then there's the crypto bros, and we can do things from the seat of our pants. And they realize they start interacting with the more, established financial institutions and other institutions. And all of a sudden they have sort of third-party requirements for security and things if they're working with people. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we just can't do this on a dime without regulation or whatever. We have to get up to snuff. So they're looking at, regulations and best practices and standards. So yes, we're definitely seeing a trend that way. As new businesses grow, regulation lags behind, the law lags behind. And, if they do things wrong early on, they got to be very careful, right? Because even if there's no regulation, there's still legal standards, there's liability. So they have to make sure, all right, this is not this is a non-regulated area, but it's still subject to criminal and or civil remedies or sanctions. So that's a big thing. You also had you were talking before about young people going into the industry and saying, I just want to be happy, right? And not necessarily at these firms, but we recognize at Kroll, and I also devote a lot of space in my book to this, about well-being, personal well-being, being one of the major responsibilities, emerging responsibilities of security, were because now you have duty of care issues, right? And you have to, you making sure that people are safe. But part of that, whether it's duty of care or not, is arguable. But you want to see people's mental well-being, reduce their stress, increase their happiness, and back when I was early in my career, like if you had an emotional issue, like, oh, call the emergency assistance program or whatever, and they give you a person, in a 5-minute phone call, and like they give you a pep talk and like, you're okay. That doesn't cut it anymore, right? Certainly since COVID, where people it was traumatic for a lot of people who stuck in their home, maybe with sick or dying relatives, out of the workforce, not communicating on a regular basis, certainly not face to face. And now we're dealing with, or kids that were out of school and didn't get these critical years. Like my older daughter, when she was in college, 2 years of it, she was basically, isolated in a hotel room where she couldn't be with people, or they canceled, in-person classes. She lost a lot of that connectivity. And you have a generation now that didn't have that personal connectivity, doesn't know how to use a phone. A phone is a computer, right? They don't like to talk to people. They like to text people. So you got to meet them where they are and understand what makes them tick and acknowledge issues like stress, social pressures, things that degrade their mental health or that affect their mental health, which is a crucial aspect to address for HR, security, and perhaps other departments. So that's a good part of my book, like talking about how important mental health monitoring and acknowledgement is to leadership, security leadership, risk leadership, and otherwise.
Here's my question. I hate texting with a passion. What you can do in 5 minutes of using your thumbs to send a message, one phone call can do that under 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. I don't get the rationale behind texting. They just, is it because it's more efficient and quicker? Or why is the texting such, is it non-invasive? Is that kind of what it is? And it's non-personal. That's why it's so more common than ever before.
Well, considering I kind of agree with you and I'm more of your generation, I'm actually probably half a generation above you. I think from what I've read, what I've heard, what I've talked to people, it's a little bit like if you call somebody, that's a major invasion of privacy. That's like you have the gall to interrupt me and dominate my time. Like when you text, you could do 15 other things at the same time. It's efficient, it's quick, and I think it's respectful. That's what people who are heavy into texting, I think, you could look at a text at your time while you're doing other things. A phone call requires all of your concentration. It's an interruption. It's a much bigger ask for your time and attention. I think that's the thing.
Good explanation. I never thought about that one.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So sometimes when I call, my daughters are like, why are you calling? Why don't you just text this? It's like, because I wanted to talk to you, and they generally don't say that, but once in a while it's like, they kind of sound confused, like, why are you calling? Yeah. It's like, you could have just asked this on a text. It's like, well, I want to hear your voice. I want to get the tone. Because I can't tell what you mean sometimes. Like, I can't tell you if they're sarcastic or, whether you mean this or that. So I just wanted to talk.
Yeah, I noticed that with the younger generation, I'll randomly call people and go, hello. I'm like, hi, this is Mark. What can I do for you? They just get so nervous. I'm like, hey, just checking in. You all right? Yeah. And it's like you take them out, they have an out-of-body experience when you call them on the phone. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And I guarantee you that they're having the same conversation about us. Like, that weirdo is calling me when he just could have texted. Like, what's wrong with him? Does he need like my voice to give him, it's like, doesn't he realize we're in, 2026? And, so they're having the same, they're saying, okay, boomer, I'm barely just a couple months into a boomer. So you must be, Generation X, right? Or whatever, whatever the next one is, right?
I just call people.
Yeah,
I'm like, they'll be blowing me up. I'm like, under 10 seconds, we can have the thing all resolved in one phone call. So I just call them. And then the Marine in me comes out, and I'm being very direct, of course, minus the language. It's all professional, of course. And I'm like, I need this, boom, 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 done in 10 seconds versus maybe 10 minutes of this. I'm like, no, time is money, time is money, time is money. So, that's how I think being a business owner. I'm like, 90% of the time I'll call you. If you text me, I probably won't see it because my theory is I'm a business owner. Give me a call. Otherwise, the texting in my mind, like, okay, I can look at it later. But maybe it's just Valley. Go ahead.
Here's the advantage of texting, and I've run up against this. How often you may take notes during a phone call. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't, or I forget where I leave the notes. If you text, you have an audit trail of exactly what you said and what you said you do, which is a big deal. You have to be pretty responsible to notate. And now there's apps that will take, we all have apps now with Zoom calls and stuff but I can see the next step is every phone call I'm on, it's like, hey, you told this person that you do this, and I could actually use that. I wouldn't want it on every call necessarily, but when I have a business call, it would be kind of cool to have a summary and said, hey, you committed to this, and then I'm not looking for my notes or whatever. And then that could populate it into my calendar. Hey, let's create a tool that does this. And, I'm sure this exists. That I'm just not. I'll get 100 calls saying, "Hey, we do this. You want to buy it?" But that I could see a value in that.
Yeah, here's another thing that the younger generation don't realize. Anything you put in text could be a document used legally.
Yep.
That's another reason why I make phone calls.
That's a great point. Because a lot of times you're on the call, you don't want it documented. You want to kind of go through possibilities and say, and you wouldn't want saying like, oh, I said something idiotic before, but that was just in a phone, in an open conversation that I was just spitballing things. That's why when you're in a board meeting, like, and you take the minutes, like the minutes are very cut and dried. They don't go into the discussion because of all the legal liability. If somebody said something, that wasn't great in there, it's like, they said this, and it's just the, this happened, that was resolved, no discussion, right? It's like discussion occurred, but not what's in it. So that's a critical point because that could take you down, right?
If someone said something, I'm like, why are you having an argument via text with somebody you're working for? Don't you realize that can be documented for courts? Oh, I never thought about that. And then people are instant messaging each other on the Facebook Messenger, and they get in this whole triad of argument, name calling or whatever it is. One of these private groups you're in, also, Mike. I see that, Mike. Don't you guys realize this could be photocopied and used in a legal situation? Why are you guys doing this? You're setting your up. So, I just had to say what I feel. I'm like, no, not on a public forum, on a platform like that. That's bad idea, especially business owners. They're venting how they, stand politically, especially if it's, I know Facebook, you can put everything private friends, so the whole world doesn't see it. Because some people, they don't even check it. They have the world, and then the whole world can see it. I'm like, okay, you're running a company, and that's a bad visibility on your company and bad representation of yourself. And it's just a trap that so many people get caught up into. I think texting started it and just transferred on to social media. And I'm like, there's too much information being presented on these forums of your opinion. And you get into the argument. I see these fights and all the mudslinging sometimes, like, whoa, that's not a good look, especially in your business brand.
You're 100% right. I'll give you a personal example that wasn't about business, but there was something that was posted on social media. It was a news item, and it said that a public official had said something that was discriminatory about somebody else. Like, it was not good. And I didn't know the guy who said it, but I was at an event with him and I had met him, and let's just say he said, like, I hate chocolate cake. All chocolate cake is terrible. And I was at a conference with him on chocolate cake. And he was like, I love chocolate cake. You know, this is great. You know, it's good for you and it tastes great or whatever. So they were saying that this guy hates chocolate cake, you know, and I was like, wait a minute. I was at a chocolate cake conference with him for 3 days. We spent a lot of time together. He was committed to it. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I got blasted by people. And I'm a kind of person who is like, so I'm defending this person who now says he doesn't like chocolate cake, and I'm a chocolate cake person. And so they're saying, oh, you're not really a chocolate cake person. You're a fake person. You're a traitor to our cause. Right. And, I was getting blasted, like we're worse than he is. Like, you're defending his. I was like, I'm just providing information, a data point.
Right.
And it seems odd to me. And I'm just saying this happened. I'm not saying he didn't say it, but I'm saying it sounds, it doesn't jibe with my experience. And I was getting personal messages like, I'm going to, you hate chocolate cake. And, this is an extended metaphor.
Sure. I get it.
But it was something that was a hot button issue. And I was like, the person I defended, he reached out to me and he was like, I'm getting destroyed. So thank you for sticking up for me. It was kind of like, I appreciate it and my team appreciates it. But you do the right thing, and is it the right thing? It comes at a toll, right? So I'm not upset I did it, but I took a beating for it, right? But it didn't have anything to do with work. It didn't affect my personal and my work brand or anything. It didn't, thank goodness, or else it could have been a big problem. But sometimes you have to stick, you have to say what you believe and take the fallout.
Right. Any parting words before we wrap up the podcast, Mike, to the listeners out there? Any advice for 2026 on what you see out there? Maybe some security leaders in different organizations may be listening to this, on any suggestions to them on how to be productive and secure, or the younger generation listening, any advice to those guys, the girls?
Yeah, one of the themes in my book, which you can apply, is that leadership in business, in your professional life, isn't like, we're not like in the show. Have you ever watched, what's it called now? Severance, where the people are split into two halves, and there's like one person, one half of the person is for work. The other half is, their personal life. We all have multiple aspects of our personality, and we show different aspects of leadership that can be transferred from one area to another. And if you can lean into some of those personal things that motivate you and develop your leadership skills and transfer it over to your business, when it's appropriate, I think that even if you don't think you're a leader, you can sort of step into leadership. You can step into situations as a leader. You can step into new roles as a leader. And your whole leadership journey is just that. You don't just arrive at being a leader, right? It's a work in progress. I write a lot about the attributes, different attributes of good leadership, and some of the the downsides, or some of the traps. You're not going to be great at everything. But if you're working at them and you're good at some of the things, you can be an effective leader. And a lot of the stories I have in my book are of proven leaders, people who are, as well as people who are new to their career, people who have struggled with leadership, people who have had disruptions or setbacks in their career journey. So you have to consider this sort of a lifelong process. And in the book, it talks about the experiences of people wiser and more, with a different background than myself. And there's just a lot of good lessons that you can apply. But outside the book, it's, leadership is sort of like, is holistic, right? You could be a leader in one place and not a leader in another place. But even if you're not in a leadership position, so young people are going to say, well, I'm not ahead of anything. How can I be a leader? I'm not in charge of anybody. Well, you can become a leader by stepping up into a working group. You could just be a voice of reason in any sort of, someone who's other people look to for their opinion. So you can be informal leader. I mean, certainly you can step up and volunteer and be the head of a task force or working group or committee or whatever. That's good. Or join an association and be, part of their community and step up in something that you feel comfortable in. That's where you flex your leadership muscles, something that you like, you're comfortable with, and that you think you have something worthwhile to say and people will follow you. So you don't have to go in and say, I'm the CSO now to be a leader. There are steps you can take to develop your leadership. So that I would leave people with that.
Great advice. So Mike, where can people find you?
They can find me, probably easy just to go on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, that's your place.
And then, or at Kroll, you can email me, michael.gips@kroll.com, or go on the Kroll ESRM website to find me for business purposes. But I prefer interaction through LinkedIn, through even if you want, even for a personal thing, I can give you my email address from there. But LinkedIn is a good way to say, okay, is somebody, legitimate, part of the community, so that'd be my preferred method of communication.
Awesome. So the audience they can find you. And for the audience listening to this, we'll be posting this, the clip on LinkedIn, but we'll have, we're transitioning, because the podcast world is changing rapidly right now. The audio side of podcasting is starting to dip now because of AI interaction with podcasts. And so what we're seeing is anything video is exploding on YouTube. It's just like a rocket ship right now for whatever reason. But we'll still have this podcast on all the podcast platforms we're on. We're on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. We're on all those. So you can still find us there. But YouTube is truly where you're going to get your most organic reach. And just for whatever reason, the audio podcast the listenership is just dropping like a lead balloon right now from the last 5-6 months. From what my producer, Chris Decker, told me, we're looking at the numbers and stuff because, audio podcasts are just dropping. They're just not getting the listeners like they used to because of the AI. There's a trust factor, like Mike alluded to with news. Where are you getting your news? And the generation that's pushing podcasts is the younger generation because they'll trust this format of podcasting over audio clip because of AI issue. And so, feel free to follow us on YouTube, Mark Ludlow, and we're revamping the podcast as we speak to a new show coming out here soon. Thanks for supporting the show. And then, of course, subscribe to the show as well on YouTube and Instagram at the Mark Ludlow, and TikTok as well, Mark Ludlow, and Facebook, Mark Ludlow. And we'll be pushing this all out on platforms. And you can watch the long form on YouTube or also, you can look us up on Listen Notes. Listen Notes is the ranking system for podcast. And so, know where they fall and all that, but there's tons of podcasts out there. But thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for supporting Mike. And please get this book, support Mike and his publication. And we'll catch you guys all in the next episode. We got some new guests coming on board and doing some more recordings for first quarter. And we got we did a driving course, and that'll be dropped as a podcast as well here coming soon of course, we just did in Dallas, Texas, preparing for the World Cup and the Super Bowl. So, and we got the Olympics coming around the corner. So lots of stuff on media side that we're working on internally. So thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fearless Mindset. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.